Daybreak. The Daybreak Show.
Boredom is killing me. Boredom is killing me. For me, only what I make, I find my square root. You share. Cause you know, cause for me, economy, it's the best of me. One best of me. Cause economy, it's the best of me. One best of me. You boy, you check economy, give me. Economy no go give me a data. Economy no go give me a blood pressure.
Of course, definitely, this economy won't make our blood pressures rise. Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Citizens Forum on Rock City 101.9. My name is Osatwame Igalo Chima.
My name is Jamie Folang. I'm a journalist by calling, researcher by choice. Investigation is the umbilical cord. Good morning, Nigerians.
And with the song we actually used to cue ourselves in, we want to deal with mental health and the prevailing economic situation, because we all are in this country and we know what is going on, as well as the impact, the effect that it has on us. Because the truth is, even if you don't get to cast the news, you get to listen to the news, and then all sorts of issues every day. We keep on having rising cases, and even with the rising economic problems that is facing the country, the issue of mental illness is emerging as a major health challenge in Nigeria. Yet, mental health is one of the most neglected by the government of Nigeria in its health programs. For instance, in most of the public hospitals in the country, there is hardly any psychiatric nurse or medical doctor to detect early mental illness in patients being attended to. The consequence of the failure to detect signs of mental illness at an early stage is quite dangerous. And so today on Citizen Forum, we'll be discussing the issues surrounding mental health as a universal right, as part of activities marking the 2023 World Mental Health Day, which is observed on October 10 every year globally. And yes, this program is sponsored by the National Association of Sea Dogs, Pyrates Confraternity, Ash Montana Deck, in collaboration with Long Island and Grand Zero Decks. And right now we have with us in the studio Dr. Yanwoluwa Balogun from Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Aro. Good morning, Dr. Balogun, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, good morning.
All right, so let's start with the theme of this year's World Mental Health Day, which is mental health is a universal human right. Can you break this down in simpler terms, please?
Okay, all right. Thank you for the question. Like you said, the theme for this year's World Mental Health is that mental health is a universal human right. And I'm just going to first start and assume that, of course, everybody knows what a human right is, which is basically the right of that all humans possess to do certain things. And there's a long list of human rights that has been speculated by the United Nations. However, there's a particular section that says that all humans have the right to live freely. And accessing health, of which mental health is a part of health, is one of the things that enables humans to live freely. People that are heal, people that are sick, people that have some form of disability, they cannot live as freely as they would like to. Now, generally, while health, of course, everybody understands the concept of health, everybody understands the concept of seeking health care. And, we can talk about so many different illnesses. For example, we can talk about, even when we bring it down to our tropical illnesses, the most common thing that, anybody has a headache, they go to a chemist and say, oh, they have malaria. People understand the concept of that, and people understand the concept of going to seek help for that. People treat it as a physical ailment that requires a physical solution. And of course, you could talk about so many other things too. You could say, oh, some people are spiritual about it, some people are not very forward in their health-seeking behaviors. But when it comes to mental health particularly, there is an aversion to that word. And it's not even just a Nigerian thing, it's all over the world. People are averse to the concept of being mentally ill. Because to be quite honest, it's a scary thing. You're talking about an illness of the mind. if say you fall down and you break your leg, you know that there's a physical bone that is broken. It's not such an abstract concept. So people would more easily accept that. But when you're saying that there's an illness of the mind, you're saying that the mind might be broken or the mind is ill. First of all, what is the mind? Where does it exist? And how can this abstract thing that we cannot see, how can it be broken in such serious ways as to affect our lives? And so generally all over the world, people are more hesitant to accept mental illnesses. But then when we bring it down to our society, when we bring it down to Nigeria, people are even more hesitant to accept the concept of a mental illness. And so basically when you say that mental health is a universal human right, it's saying that, first of all humans have the right to, one, it's a lot of things actually, but number one, to not be stigmatized for a mental illness. I'm sure, we have so many examples. We have the side talks in church talking about maybe a church family member that we know is maybe mentally ill. There are the side talks, there are the sneakers, there are the there are those talks. There are the vagrant people that we see on the road, looking disheveled, looking dirty. There is the way we avert our eyes when we see them because they are a blight. These are things that should not exist. Or there's even, let's even bring it down to milder things. And when I say mild, I say it very loosely because this can also be serious. But there are even people that suffer things like depression, and then there's the depression is not a Nigerian thing. Those kind of talks, they exclude people. They introduce stigma, and that's a barrier to even achieving mental wellness as a right. Because if we cannot talk freely about these things, if we are not ready to admit that these things exist, then how can we begin to even seek help for it? How can we begin to treat it? So recognizing mental health as a human right is saying that, first of all, we want to erase stigma that surrounds mental health.
Okay.
So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two would be to say that we want to make mental health care accessible. Say that a particular person who has some mental illness has recognized by himself that he has a mental illness, or maybe he doesn't, because a lot of people with mental illnesses will not recognize by themselves. It's people that are with them that will recognize something is wrong. So say someone has identified that this person has a particular ailment, has a mental illness. Then number two question is, how do they access care? Which is an important question. Every day we talk about brain drain. Everybody is leaving the country. Doctors are leaving the country. Lawyers are leaving the country. But there is a gap in available resources for mental health care. And this is vis-a-vis mental health specialists, so nurses, doctors, psychiatrists, social workers, and the whole team. What about facilities? Do we even have facilities to access mental health care? Last I'm aware, there are about 9 dedicated psychiatric hospitals in the country. Of course, a lot of other tertiary hospitals, they have psychiatric departments, a lot of them. But the capacity in those departments, you can't compare it to a dedicated psychiatric facility. Also, there are private psychiatric facilities, but then what about the cost? Now, we also have to bear in mind that most of these psychiatric facilities that I'm talking about, they are in urban areas. So what happens to the person in rural community that has a mental illness? A lot of time, these people, when they eventually seek some form of formal health care, they are traveling distances to do that. And we have to bear in mind that, there are so many factors that would affect that. There's the fact that, first of all, people are even poor. So why should I spend about some 8,000 naira, even 5,000 naira to travel to a state? In this case, it's then easier to say that, what the fuck is mental health? Why are you saying this is a spiritual problem? Not necessarily, because of course there's the fact that we as Nigerians are very spiritual people, but sometimes it's just easier to accept that this is a spiritual problem, because it's easier. If I can say this is a spiritual problem, then I know I need to go and meet my pastor, or I need to go and meet my alpha, or I need to go and meet my babalawo, as the case may be. But then if I'm accepting that this is something that needs some form of orthodox care, then it means I'm also committing to doing the hard work of looking for the orthodox care, which is not commonly found.
And we cannot even determine whether it's efficient, effective.
Is it the available?
The orthodox.
Well, I think we can talk about that
later. Okay.
Later, I think we can talk about that later. So there's that. While talking about accessibility, I think we also need to talk about affordability. So say there is some form of mental health care within my reach that I can easily access. Can I afford to access this care? And these are all things that stand in the way of allowing people to actually, optimize mental health. Then there are also things in the community too, because now we're talking about treating an illness. What about exclusion? People with mental illnesses have some form of disability, and that's the truth. Again, when we talk about disability in Nigeria, we mostly talk about physical disabilities. So a certain person cannot see or cannot see properly. A certain person cannot walk. A certain person is on crutches. A certain person needs hearing aids. But people with mental illnesses too have some form of disability vis-a-vis how they can interact with their environment. Some people with mental illnesses have paranoia that is so bad, where they think, certain people are they're after them, certain people are trying to kill them. Now, in the context of these beliefs, how is it to interact with co-workers, for example? If you think your co-worker is always trying to kill you, how can you work in that setting? And so because of that, there is an exclusion. Also because of stigma too. Say someone is recognized as having a mental illness and the person needs a house. It might be denied the ability to rent a house based on his illness.
Okay.
It might be excluded from certain public spaces based on his illness. It might be excluded from certain amenities. Every now and then the government will come up with some program and they'll say they are subsidizing something, or they are giving out what do they call these things now?
Palliative.
Yes, palliatives to better the lives of
people.
How often are mentally ill people included in this?
Okay, let's pick it up from this end. We've been looking at the World Mental Health Day, and the theme of you've discussed extensively on the theme of this year's Mental Health Day, that is mental health is a universal right. And let's now put it in the context of Nigeria. We've looked generally the concepts and how it affects individual in the community. And you've mentioned issue of stigma, you've talked about exclusion, you've talked about issue relating to accessibility, affordability. Yeah. So can you put this in the context of Nigeria? For example, we have removal of fuel subsidy, just like you mentioned, and people are having challenges. Human rights data is not favorable when it comes to Nigeria issue. Someone with mental health is likely to be discriminated against based on environmental issue in Nigeria. So how do we affect or address this challenge of stigmatization, exclusion, accessibility when it comes to mental health issue in Nigeria?
Okay, so now you're asking about solutions.
Exactly.
I would say that the solution is, first of all, is not an individual thing. There are certain things that individuals can do, but this is something that has to be done in large groups of individuals. That's one. Number two is that there has to be deliberate efforts by government bodies, policymakers, to pass laws that include, that are favorable for people that have mental illnesses. But I think I would start by saying that for individuals, what can we do as individuals? One of the biggest tools in fighting stigma is education. This program is some form of education. Yes. People are afraid of things that they don't know. People are afraid of things that they don't understand. People exclude things that they don't understand. There are a lot of myths, for example, about mental illness. We believe that sometimes I must pay a for or we say to punish, delay, and some of these myths would also further perpetuate stigma. If we say that someone is being punished by God or someone has been afflicted by spiritual illnesses, then we want to avoid them because we don't want whatever spiritual thing is on their path to come close to us. Everybody is guiding in Nigeria. The country is hard enough.
Taking care of the person, we distance ourselves.
But by educating people, by talking about it, we keep talking about it. I would even say that the level of knowledge regarding mental health is more than when I began university, for example, because people talk about it more. And so the more people talk about things, the more there can be some level of awareness and understanding, and then the fear is less, and then we are more easily ready to accept something. So education is very important. And of course, this education can come in many facets. There is the individual learning about something by themselves. There are schools teaching about it, even right from primary school. We teach about our bodies in primary school. They teach us some very basic parts of your body, so we can teach about these things in primary school, in secondary school. We can include it in the curriculum. We can organize programs. Even companies can organize workshops, timeouts, events to just talk about these things.
All right.
People can be encouraged to share their experiences in safe zones. I would believe that this is a safe zone, of course, because the radio is bound by certain anonymity and certain principles. If somebody comes in now and says, for example, I've had schizophrenia, I doubt anybody in the radio station will start laughing at the person. And so to some extent, the person has been able to share in a safe zone. Safety is important. You want people with illnesses have to be careful who they open up to. But sharing is still very important. The more we can demystify this thing, the more people can be aware, and the more they can be understanding, the lesser they can be fair. So education is one. Number two would be policy. And this is a government thing. There's actually been, would I say, some very marked improvements. I don't know if everybody's aware, but in January, this year, Buhari passed the Mental Health Act.
Yes.
And this has been long coming. The last change in this was in 1958. So it's been long coming. This is a 64-year change. And of course, we also now have to start talking about how do we implement this new act. Because this new act, if you go through it, it's very, I don't want to say patient, it's very client forward.
Okay.
It puts a lot of their rights in context. Okay. The right to wrong hospitalization, the right to being participants in their decisions about their care, the right to, which is something I didn't mention earlier, that part of acknowledging that mental health is a universal human right means that mentally ill people have to be able to make decisions about their care. That someone is mentally ill does not mean that.
And do you think they will make a rational decision because of the state of their health?
Again, there are different kinds of mental illnesses. Okay. Do you understand? There's a concept that we talk about in psychiatry. We call it insight. Okay. Insight is the ability to know that there are some things that are wrong with you. Insight is the ability to realize that these things that are wrong with you they are a medical problem. And then we'll say someone has full insight when they are willing to accept medical care for the medical problem that they've recognized.
Okay.
Some people have insight. Now, even some people without insight, right? There's something. There's a what would I call it? There's something that's talked about competency. Is someone competent enough to make decisions?
Okay.
Even people that are not insightful, some of them have competency. They are aware. They know that these are the problems and they don't want care for it. Human rights is saying that they should be able to make that decision for themselves. It's like,
let me be specific.
Let me give an
all right,
example so that we're very clear.
Okay.
Some people with diabetes come down with complications of diabetes. One of the common complications of diabetes is something we call a diabetic foot or a diabetic ulcer. It's a very terrible thing. I don't know if any of us knows what that is. And sometimes
It leads to amputation.
yes, some people with diabetes refuse to have that amputation, even though it is life-saving. They are making a wrong decision, of course, because this is something that would save their life. But should we deny them the ability to make that decision for themselves?
What of if it will cost their life?
They are aware it can cost their lives. They are aware. They are aware, but they are competent. We've judged them as competent. So in talking about this, people with mental illnesses making their decision, it's important to say, in the first place, are they competent?
Okay.
Once we can assess that competency and establish it and say this person is competent, then we should be able to afford them that right to make the decision. But of course, it's not such a straightforward black and white thing.
Yeah.
Also,
It depends on the situation.
we have to acknowledge that it's not such a straightforward black and white thing.
Okay.
All right, so let's look at the economic situation in the country right now. How does the economy affect mental health? Because let's look at it from the look of things. If you don't get to hear that about 50 people died or something, you go on the street and you discover that the cost of living these days is really getting high, and not everyone's income is actually increasing. So how can the economy affect mental health, and what can we also do to make sure that the prevalent situation around us does not affect us mentally?
Okay, those are two questions. First question is, how does the economy? Of course, the economy is affecting everybody now. The economy is affecting me. I don't think the economy is affecting you. Now, in times of economic problems, and this is not just even a Nigerian thing, there is an increased stress on the mind. There's an increased stress, which is even very easy to understand. You know, for some certain people, their children's school teacher is sending them home to say, go and meet your daddy, where's school fees? Anybody will be stressed about that. A family man that has to think of where's the next food coming from. I have a family of 5. How do I feed them? How do I go to work? You know, even people that have work, sometimes they are barely able to rake by fare. So, you know, I have work. I'm trying not to lose work in this economy, but it's not even enough to. I don't even have enough money for fare. And all of these things would pose increased stress on the mind. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future. Every day, dollar keeps rising. There's a lot of uncertainty. People are unsure about what is going to happen to me tomorrow. And this can increase stress. This can increase hopelessness. This can, you know, even put a strain on even the most resilient people. This can put a strain on their resilience. And then this can now cause there to be a breakdown. We'll find that if we just randomly pick a random mental illness, for most of them, they can be exacerbated by uncertainty, economic uncertainty. There was something that was discovered by a psychologist many years ago, how that in certain places, when there were things like wars, recessions, economic hardships, there was an increased rate of suicide because people just simply could not deal anymore with the things that were going on, and they felt, oh, it was better to die. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So the economy would definitely put a strain on the mental health of so many people. So that's on one hand, the economy is likely going to cause more people to break down, more people to also even start engaging in adverse behaviors. Gambling, for example, everybody is betting and trying to,
make more money.
Make more money. They are,
because of the economical shift.
yeah, but they are entering into an addictive hole. Gambling is very addictive.
And this can impact the mental health.
Addiction is a mental illness, so you have to even first state that addiction is a mental illness. There's that on one hand. What about people that are using substances just so they can get some respite from the happenings of the country? Another addictive behavior. And then there'll probably be an increased rate of depression, increased rate of suicide. And with all of these things that are happening, it's not like suddenly mental health care is more accessible and more affordable than before. So now there are increased problems, but the solutions are not increasing. There's also the impact on the workforce. Brain drain. Because of the economic situation, people are leaving the country in droves. Again, the solutions are dwindling, the problems are increasing. What solutions can we propose to this is, well, I would say that there are some basic things that each person can do. And I don't even want to talk about what the government can do, because I'm not speaking to the government, I'm speaking to people. What can everyday people do to buffer themselves against these problems? I would say that some of the things everyday people can do is, number one, as much as possible, and I'm talking to people that even have a means, right? But as much as possible, live within those means. Live within those means. Don't compare yourself to the Joneses. Say you used to do something before, accept sometimes that you can no longer do something, and cut your coat to the new,
according to the clothes
to the new
available.
cloth available. To the new
Not
cloth
even your size.
Not anymore.
To the new cloth available. That's one. Number two is that people should find ways to relax. Cheap ways to relax: meditation, physical exercise. Take a walk, take a long walk, clear your head, run by the beach. We don't have beaches in Abeokuta.
No, we don't.
Climb Olumo Rock and come back down. Engage in physical exercise. It's healthier. It's healthier. A lot of people eat junk, Indomie, easy food. Eat more vegetables, eat more fruits, drink a lot of water. Take care of your physical health as soon as there's a problem, because that's anything that would cause stress on the mind can cause a breakdown, and physical health can be a very big source of stress. So when you have a headache, treat it immediately. Don't wait until the headache becomes neck pain and you can't move. Don't wait until that happens. Then now you're thinking of bigger hospital bills. So as soon as there's a problem with your physical health, take care of it. And then if you identify that something is wrong, something feels wrong with your mind, or someone identifies that something is wrong with someone's behaviors, it's best to take immediate steps. So while there are very few psychiatric services in the country, there are still some, and at least government facilities are affordable to some extent. I know that I'm saying this very loosely because some people can't even afford these government facilities, but they are way more affordable than private facilities. And so as soon as a problem is identified, seek help. Even if you can't go to a psychiatrist, go to a general practitioner. General practitioners can do something. They can do a lot of things. And when they feel like, they can't do anything anymore, then they might refer. But it's better than sitting home and going to church. Sitting in church. Nobody is saying don't go to church. Of course, spirituality is also a very good coping mechanism. It helps to give people hope. It helps to make people feel like there's someone watching after me. There's a better life for me in future. That's something spirituality can do.
But it should not be the sole solution.
Yes, it should not be the only solution. It should not be the only solution. If you identify that there's a problem, commit your affairs to God. Seek medical help urgently. So those are some things that people can do.
Okay, we are specifically looking at mental health and the prevailing economic situation in Nigeria. And when you look at Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution, it talks about the fundamental objective and directive principle of state policy. And this specifically talks about the section, especially 13, says shall be the duty and responsibility of organs of government and of all authorities, persons exercising legislative, executive, judicial powers to confirm and observe and apply the provision of this constitution. People have talked about this particular section is not justiciable because
first of all, this is just a big grammar.
The meaning here is that all social activities, social amenities, whatever you need as citizen in terms of water, in terms of road, in terms of infrastructure, your needs, economic need should be taken care of by the government. That's the summary of the Chapter 4. Okay. And it is the duty of the government to provide this in order to address the economic challenge you are presently facing. Okay. But people have now argued that it's not justiciable. And there's this statistics that talks about, 1 out of 8 in the world, person in the world have mental illness. So with the economic prevalence, economic situation in our nation, earlier I've mentioned issue of you've also mentioned it, removal of fuel subsidy. The take-home pay can no longer take us home, and we've been talking about even 50,000 non-interest loan. So how do we? You've talked about some coping mechanism, but in specific term, we've been having some misconception about issue of mental health. Some people believe that if you are not mentally, you cannot think for yourself, or there is one form of disability in terms of your mental health. That's actually mental health. But we have situation where, because of the stress, economic stress in our nation, because government is not providing the basic infrastructure, so how do we situate this? How do we address this specific challenge? What's the role of government in addressing the economic challenges in our nation in order to solve the problem of mental health?
The role of government is in specific. Yeah, you're specific about the economic problems. How does the government address economic problems?
Exactly.
I would first of all say that maybe this is a question best asked to the economists, right? I can say how can the government help to implement policies? How can they increase the healthcare budgets? Those are things that are within the purview of health. But how does the government? Yeah, you're saying that this is not even a health problem we are trying to tackle. How does the government?
But there's an relationship between the economic challenge we have in our country and the mental health.
So how does the government improve the economy? Vis-a-vis fuel subsidy removal, vis-a-vis the loans of the country, because I think the country is very heavily indebted, vis-a-vis minimum wage. And we can say a lot of these things. We can say that can government increase minimum wage to a certain figure? I'm sure that economists have calculated what they think based on inflation, what they think the appropriate minimum wage should be. We can say, the government can work on that, improving minimum wage. We can say, the government can make healthcare subsidized or free. Okay. Already healthcare is subsidized. So it is. Can say, because healthcare is expensive, if we're being honest. We can say, government can make it even more subsidized.
At government hospitals or facilities?
At government facilities, or even free. We can talk about the National Health Insurance Act, making sure that everybody is insured under that policy.
Do we have mental health included in the National Insurance
It is. But how many people are captured by National Health Insurance Act? Very few people. I think less than 10% of the country is captured by that. Do you understand?
Okay.
So we can talk about all these things, but you're asking me. I'm a psychiatrist. So you're asking me for.
At least people will have come to you saying that it's because I lost my job. Let me give you a specific example. I am a teacher. And,
like I said, there are individual things that certain individuals can do. And of course, there are also roles that the government can play. I mentioned some of those roles. Making healthcare more accessible, putting policies to make sure that there are more doctors retained in the system, so better healthcare worker satisfaction, and making sure that everybody or most people are captured under the National Health Insurance Act, increasing the healthcare budget, increasing the allocation for mental health in the healthcare budget. Those are some of the things that government can do. Education, public education, talking about it on TV and radio. I mean, NTA used to do all those kind of government used to do those kind of things. There was a time government was preaching about HIV every day. You would hear a jingle, you know. So while we can do education, the government can do education on even a more larger platform. There's that. There's also the things that individuals can do. For example, I talked about discrimination, exclusion. Okay. Some people would say, oh, somebody goes to apply for a job and they refuse to employ him because they are aware he has a mental illness, a past mental health history. This is someone that is fine and well and capable. Government can also work. They can work in putting laws in place too. In fact, I think the Mental Health Act already covers that. Discrimination, it already covers that. Do you understand?
All right.
But economy, how does the Nigerian government better improve the economy to make sure that we're all not poor and destitute? That's an interesting question. I want to know the answer to that. And I want to see it implemented also.
Okay, all right, Dr. Balogun, I have a particular issue.
Yeah.
And the issue is, you said that, okay, when we are going through things, we should maybe talk to people, but a common factor, I don't want to say it's a Nigerian thing, but maybe I have an issue and I come to discuss with you, although let's say you're not a psychiatrist and all that, and then you just tell me, you see, you're also going through the same problem, call on Shandua, you know, the normal statement we all make, and then maybe later you get to see, okay, something has happened to this person, or this person has lost his life. We will be the first to go on social media, or we will be the first to go everywhere and pay our condolence visits and say, this person was a nice man, he was, so why did he not talk to us? We have that issue. People come to talk to us, but we tend to just, you know, throw it away. We feel it's not serious, not until something happens to them before we begin to realize that, oh, we didn't know he was depressed, or how we didn't know that he's going through. So how can we go off that spirit of really this nonchalant attitude of caring for others because we feel we are also going through problems that is way much worse than what the other person is going through?
And I think that we can do this by trying to imbibe a culture of empathy. Empathy is putting yourself in someone's shoes and removing yourself from the picture. It's not about you. Yes, you have your problems, but right now it's not about you. So someone has come to you to say, oh, so is going on, so is going on. You can empathize. You know, you can empathize. Tell the person, I can understand what you're going through. You might not understand, but, you know, make the first person feel better. Talk to the person with kind words. Don't discount their experiences. Something that we like to say is that your feelings are valid. At the end of the day, your feelings might be incorrect. You know, your feelings might be incorrect, but they are valid. And when I say feelings here, I'm talking of feelings like emotions, sadness, anger, happiness, joy. Some people get, sometimes somebody sends me one very ridiculous amount of money and I feel happy. Maybe someone sends me 2K, you know, and I feel actually very excited and like, what's the big deal? I feel happy about it. I'm allowed to feel happy about it. Same way someone is allowed to feel sad if his paint got scratched. You know, we're not saying that has to be the prevalent emotion of that person all the time, but recognizing that we're not a monolith. We're not all expected to have the same emotions at the same exact time, to the same exact experience. And that's where empathy comes in, removing ourselves from the picture. That's number one. Number two is that if anybody talks to you about suicide, take it seriously. The person might be joking, but most people that end up committing suicide, or most people that end up dying by suicide, we try not to say the word committing suicide, most people that die by suicide have told somebody about it, at least one person. And most of the time they talk about it jokingly. Even
if it is full sleep, it might be a sleep that comes from the mind.
Maybe a sleep. And most of the time they just say it jokingly, you know. But if somebody talks about suicide, take it seriously. Now recognize your limits. What can you do? What can you not do? A lot of people don't have the capacity to help. That's the truth. But you can refer to someone that might have the capacity to help. And I'm not even talking about a mental personnel now. Is there an elder person in the community that talks well and that people listen to and that listens to people, you can refer that person to that person.
Okay.
Your pastor in church, is this someone that listens? Is this someone that is kind? You can refer that person to them if they are a religious person. Someone else in their family, taking actionable steps, making sure that someone is checking up on them, referring them to a doctor, a GP at least. Let the GP take it from there. Do you understand?
All right.
Those are things that we can do, and it's very important that if somebody talks about suicide, we take it seriously. Take it very seriously.
Okay, there is a category of people that we tend to neglect when it comes to mental issues because we feel what are they thinking of, and that is the children.
Yes.
Teenagers. They are usually affected. Do I say they're actually at the forefront? But a whole lot of time we feel they are young. What have they achieved? What are they'll tell you kill them roll. But the thing is, these people are also getting affected. So how do we deal with mental illness in children, young teenagers, and young adults?
One is that we need to create safe spaces for children. Safe spaces start from the home. So even the family dynamics. Unfortunately, there's also this is also going to open on that kind of topics. How do we create safe spaces for children in the home? Because there's a way we build the home. The home is sacrosanct. Whatever happens in the home is fine. The adults have the final decision and the final say. And that should be so, except that there are some times we've read news, we've seen some of the evils that adults perpetuate to children. So number one is that we have to make the home a safe space. And in the cases where the home is not a safe space, how can we come in? Unity. Do you understand? And the supremacy of adults. We wouldn't, if it was abroad now, you can say you want to involve social services, you want to involve, but in this case, it might be more prudent to involve other family members, things that they say. Maybe before, someone very excited to go play football on a Saturday morning. Now, what is football and why are you talking to me about it? Those are some of the major, there are other things that you would find in persons with depression, but those are some of the common things we'll look out for. For people that have anxiety, in fact, there are different types of anxiety disorders, right? And again, anxiety can also be a normal human emotion.
Without being a mental illness.
Yes, it can also be a normal emotion. If, say, you were to meet the president today, very impromptu, you might have some form of anxiety about that meeting. It's normal. But when it is persistent and it disrupts your normal functioning, suddenly you can't come to work anymore because you are anxious to face your co-workers. You can't come to work anymore because you are anxious to talk to the taxi man. It's beginning to affect your daily functioning, and there's a problem. There are also some disorders that would just broadly classify and call them psychosis, although psychosis is not a term that we try to use anymore. And in people that have psychosis, there's a break in their reality. They don't see things and appreciate things the way other people see it. All of us can look at this wall and see that this wall is white. But someone with psychosis might have a very strong belief that this wall is red because someone poured blood on it. Do you understand? They might hear things that other people are not hearing. Do you understand? So those are some of the examples of symptoms of mental illness. Something else is that, of course, there's also substance use, which is very prevalent. Almost everybody, they are singing about it in songs, Colorado, Loud, and the Myriad. I can go on.
So taking substance abuse is a form of mental illness? Or it can lead to addiction, which is a mental illness. Because people with addiction cannot control. There's a loss of control. They can't control their use of that thing, and it becomes a problem because they can't function anymore. Something that is very common. There's also the fact that while addiction itself is a mental illness, it can also lead to other types of mental illnesses like psychosis. Something that is important is that for most of these mental illnesses, there are some common things that you find that span a lot of them, and one of them is poor sleep. So, because you asked that what can people easily recognize, I've mentioned a couple of things, but specifically if you find someone is not sleeping, there might be a problem. If you find someone is not eating well,
there might be a problem. If you find that someone is losing weight, of course, losing weight has implications in even physical illnesses. So many things can cause a person to lose weight. It might be a problem. Then, of course, there's now these other specific things I've mentioned. Is the person excessively sad? Is the person excessively anxious? Is the person unable to function, do their normal day-to-day activities? Is the person unable to care for themselves? Is the person having a break in reality? Hearing things nobody can hear? Seeing things nobody can see, having beliefs that are unfounded, accusing people of chasing them and trying to harm them.
Alright.
These are some of the questions that we can ask.
Alright, okay, quickly, before we go on a break for the national news, you mentioned sleep. I just want to ask, how many hours should an adult sleep? Because a school of thought believes that as a young person, you shouldn't sleep 8 hours every day. It means you're sleeping a couple of hours of your
with
life.
this economy reality, you need to do a lot of job. Morning, afternoon, evening. So how with that?
Ideally now, and according to our health, how many hours should an adult get proper rest?
7 to 8 hours every day is fine.
7 hours?
Yes.
7 to 8 hours.
Me, I'm of the school of thought that nobody's chasing you. That's my own school of thought. Of all the people that are sleeping 3 hours and 4 hours, how many of them have eaten big?
And then with this economic reality,
they
have many jobs.
And then they will now break down, and the ones that have eaten big will now have to spend all that money taking care of their health, or they will not. The ones that have not eaten big will now have to spend money they don't have to take care of their health. Double problem.
We sacrifice our health to make more money, and we sacrifice the money to take care of our health.
And people that have the money can sacrifice the money. Other people that don't have the money, what do they sacrifice?
Okay. All right. At this point, we need to go on a break for the national news, and when we return, will be time to take your calls and read more messages. Please stay with us.
They work for Nigeria anymore. Latino they are for they watch football. I swear, no checking check for more. On Dominic, what did I I'm so bad out of my mind, I'm losing it. Like suffering cocos, I'm losing it.
Traffic updates, business news, weather reports, eyewitness reports, and a variety of topical issues. These are the basic ingredients of a top-notch breakfast show. Welcome to the Daybreak Show, weekday mornings on Rock City 101.9 FM, the voice of the people.
If your radio's on, it better be the rock station.
Clouds go gray from the rose and the earth sings. Season's just beginning. Sunlight it hides as the clouds make way. From the pouring of my blessings, I will not be afraid. I see it now, I understand, I know. So I embrace it, dance in the rain. It's for my feet to grow. For every prayer and every seed I've sown. Lord,
thank you for being with us on the other side of the radio. It is the second lap of today's edition of Citizens Forum on Rock City 101.9, and our focus is still on mental health and the prevailing economic situations in the country. And we have with us Dr. Iyanolu Balogun from the Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Arrow. And of course, this program is sponsored by the National Association of Sea Dogs, Pyrates Confraternity Ash Montana Deck in collaboration with Long Island and Ground Zero Decks.
Okay, thank you. We are looking at mental health and the prevailing economic situation in Nigeria. And while during the break we talk about relationship between mental health and infidelity. So is there any relationship between mental health? Because there is this assumption these days that we have high level of mental health issue among women or men, I don't know. And I remember some weeks back we brought an expert here to talk about DNA. and paternity crisis in Nigeria, and he mentioned that poverty also contribute to issue related to partner wanting DNA. So, what's the relationship between relationship and mental health?
Okay, well, thank you for that question. It's been found that people that are in stable, secure relationships have better health, better mental health. And even for people that already have mental illnesses, those of them that are in secure, stable relationships, those of them that are married, they have better chances of getting well and remaining well, as opposed to people who are undergoing separation or divorce, or people who are having turbulent times in their marriages or in their relationships. So I would say that the ratio at about 1 to 700,000. So it's dire. It's saying that obviously one person cannot adequately respond to 700,000. It means that some people don't even have any access. That's what it means. Because also there's also the knowledge that most of these specialists are resident in urban areas. So it means that some people don't even have any access or any hope of access. I think I mentioned earlier that some people, before they can access care, they have to travel long distances to access care. Do you understand? So, yes, the situation is dire.
300 in Nigeria. Yes. Are they still in the service, or where are they?
Every day people are leaving. Every day people
living
are
to where?
Living to other sectors, living to other clients.
And what's the effect on taking care of those that have health challenges, mental health challenges in Nigeria, and how do we solve this?
The available people are trying their best. The available people are trying their best. They're doing the best they can with the resources they have, but that also means that we as individuals have a great role to play to even making sure we don't break down in the first place.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go over to take some calls and read some messages. The numbers to call is 0701132 7096, and you can also call 0810 786 0000. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
I'm Kayode Olumide from Abeokuta. Good morning, Dr. Balogun. Lord bless you.
Good morning.
And good morning, people there.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Every day, let me take off from where you ended. Every day, everybody is leaving the country. And you can see that we are moving away from, such people are moving away from ashes. Somebody is taking us. And you can just imagine a whole lot of others that could not be able to afford for such journey elsewhere. You see, today there is no doubt. It is very, very obvious that Nigeria is suffering leadership vacuum. We have leadership today that cannot ordinarily inspire, conciliate, or influence the citizens any longer than this little palliative called Indomie, small one Congo of rice and so on. For instance, how many leaders over there you read in your news this morning, considering those people working in some parastatals or institutions who have not been able to be motivated or any incentives at all, not to talk of salaries unpaid. You can imagine that how such people will be able to manage their health conditions, how such people will be able to go to hospital and then be attended to. Some people go to almost go to hospital, they could not be able to pay and they are troubling them. How do you see that? You see, you mentioned even of those people that have depression, working, and even especially in public offices or places. How do you address the situation of such people if they are stigmatized and then they said go home, this and that? These are lots of things. But I want to ask this question also. What exactly do we bring brainwaves inside this reason of what we are discussing?
Thank you.
And what is it about? Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. This is Nicholas.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you for this topic. I don't have much to say, but I expect the Minister of Health and the Minister of Interior, because given the level of drugs available for the youths and our towards border and the economy, we would need more prisons and more psychiatric hospitals. In fact, the students studying psychiatry will be hot cake in the next 3 or 4 years, Arrow will not be enough. We need more psychiatric hospitals because Nigeria is becoming a psychiatric case. Have a nice day. God bless Rock City.
Thank you.
I don't wish that we need more.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Mr.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning.
And good morning to our soft-spoken president.
Good morning.
My name is calling from Essence. You see, this issue of mental affairs and person, I attribute it to what Yoruba would call Jamie, I'm 51 years and 3 months. If today I decide to go into, I began to smoke it go, and I began to face all this hard work, and I become mental. Will I attribute it to the so-called economy that was faced back in this country? And I went from that quickly. There's that general belief that once somebody has been confirmed to be having a mental problem, there is no how you can heal that person, and that person can be completely healed. I want you to elucidate on it because if somebody is having mental problem, misbehaves and say, I put today. And again, just this morning, when I was preparing to Powofa, just this morning, Jamie, as I was coming to FFC, under the bridge, I met one young man between 40 to 30 years, who was just making nasty comments. And this man was only his dime on the sand, and he was telling people, this ceremony is done on Powofa. And finally, our guest is there anything like what we call what I would call hereditary? That's to say, if somebody whose parents is having a mental problem, and that the boy or the girl is better with that mental problem, that family is having.
All right.
Thank you for the questions.
Let's get to
let's take one more, okay. And then to give answers to all of them together. Hello, good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, my name is Akin Biduni. I'm calling you from Camp Abeokuta.
Thank you.
Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
And there are people in the house. Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is this: you have spoken a lot about the mental status of a human being in this part of the world. I want to ask: is there a relationship between love and mental alertness, and sex and mental alertness? Can you please educate me? Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Dr. Balu. Yes, please.
All right. So I think was it Umoro? I'm not sure I got the name. Asked a question about. No, that was not the only question. It started from Afawafa in relationship to drugs, and well, yes, drugs can put a person at increased risk of breaking down and coming down with a mental illness. And by drugs, I mean substances. We have illicit substances, but it's not just even illicit substances. Even legalized substances like alcohol and cigarettes can also affect the mental health. And while it's very easy to say, oh, you caused the problem. Well, what is to be done about it? There are so many factors that influences a person starting substances, and there are so many factors that influences a person continuing substances. Where did they grow up in? For example, someone whose mother sells pelebe is likely to start taking pelebe at a young age, and anybody that would start drinking at a young age would likely be more addicted to a substance. Do you understand? So what are the factors, and how do we protect people? It's not enough to blame. Blame doesn't do anything, in my opinion. So this person caused it, but what are we doing about it? How are we regulating the availability of these substances in the country? How are we regulating access to it? Anybody, any random child, any 4-year-old child can go down the streets to buy alcohol or to buy cigarettes. These are things that are very heavily even though they are legal, they are very heavily regulated in other countries. You need an ID that states that you're an adult before you can purchase these things. So how are we regulating access to it? Then also, how are we sorting out family problems? Someone who wakes up every morning to parents exchanging blues is likely to seek solace in the arms of a bottle or a substance. So yes, it's true that substances can increase the risk of that, but it's not enough to throw blame. How do we address the issues that even cause these substances to be used in the first place? So that's the first question. For the second question about heredity, well, yes, again, a lot of mental illnesses can be inherited.
Okay.
Right? But it doesn't mean that it will be inherited. It just means that someone whose parent or cousin or sibling has a disorder there's also an increased risk of having that disorder. It's not 100% risk. A lot of times, in fact, most of the time, the risk is less than 10%. For something like schizophrenia, which is a common psychosis, well, not common, it's a rare psychosis, but it's a devastating psychosis. The risk in parents and children is less than 20%. So that means that there's like a 1 in 5 chance. So yes, it's possible. A lot of these things can be inherited, but it's not a guarantee that it will be inherited. Then the last
Nicholas talked about the prevalence of drug abuse among the youth, and the fear that there will be geometrical.
No, it's the truth. He's saying the truth. It's correct in saying that because of the increase in drug use, there will be an increase in mental disorders. It's the truth.
All right, and then Kayode Olumide actually said that
relationship between sex.
No, he actually said this whole issue has to do with a leadership problem. Would you want to give any comments, or would you want to pass?
I think I can give a little comment. Like I said, how are these drugs coming into the country? How are they going out? A lot of these things are illegal. How is ice made available? Ice used to be very expensive. Any random person can go anywhere now and buy ice. How is it available? It's an illegal substance. So if things are coming into the country, we need to ask the government who is regulating the movements, the passage. And then even for things that are legal, what is the government doing to regulate the use?
All right, let's go to pick more calls. 0701132. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Roxy.
Good morning.
My name is Akion Maki, and I'm calling from Para Housing Estate.
Thank you.
Good morning, resource person.
Good morning.
Doctor. Yes. I want you to look critically into the issue of governmental participation. You know, as far as the issue is concerned, government has gone a long way to increase the crisis of mental stability. I want to give an instance. I woke up this morning, 1 kg of cooking gas is now 1,250. I will need close to 15,000 naira to fill my cylinder of 12.9 kg. This is the type of thing we're talking about. So many civil servants are not paid as at when due. Even pensioners are suffering. And on and on like that. It's chronicled in one funny Yoruba lyric. You know, I'm sure you must have heard that sound that says, economy is the first for me, diwere. See what I mean? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
It's Samuel Sabanet from Alagbadu. And there's different things contributed to the health condition of the people in the society. One, poor maintenance, poor facility in the society. Two, inadequate police crime record. You know, the rule of law. What aim of the rule of law is to have the record of crime committed by different criminals, so as to ascertain the level of their head. And this is why we have police crime record. And perhaps we need at least 50% of statistics officials in policing, so that they can detect with quick rehabilitation. Because the head of some criminal that can go by our foreign enemy to terrorize the people of this country. You know, it is only of 80 people can engage in this kind of killing. Only God saved my first daughter about 4 days on that raping. After 7 months of his sister dead, without any police arrest or anything. So these are the reasons why we are unable to checkmate the problem of our people said. A person with intellectual drive by state track record
All right.
can still be vilified because our foreign enemy doesn't want our progress in our region.
Thank
All these
you.
things
Thank
to be
you.
condemned.
Thank you so much. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
God bless you.
Can you turn down the volume on your radio sets, please?
Thank you. Yami, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Anasatame,
Good morning.
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
Hello.
We
We
can,
can hear you clearly. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Apostle Taiwo Ayombode from Sharp Corner area, Ikeja town. Look, we have to blame these foreign countries for producing these substances that is causing all this mental problem in our own country. And come to Nigeria, we have to thank NDLA for the marvelous job they are doing, seizing all these substances. We don't know how they come into the country. By what means? Who imported them? Where are the companies? Which are the companies imported this? Who are the private individuals? Are they the leaders? Who are they? Are they students? Are they companies importing these substances? I think we have to stand up and fight these menace. Otherwise, this country can turn to, I don't know, people countries where, that's why you have kidnappers all over the country. Insecurity. It is substances that are causing all these things. Our government must stand up, must wake up, fight. Cooperate with NDLA.
Thank you.
The director.
Thank
you so much. Hello, good morning.
Friend of ministry.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Honorable Larry Jaji. Larry is calling from the People's Parliament in Jagunoleme in Abeokuta. My sister, Nigeria needs to really be very proactive. The rate at which our youth are consuming illicit drugs is something that is very an alarming state. The most unfortunate thing is that if this bubble should burst, we cannot contain it. It's not possible. We don't have the facility. We don't have all the takes to be able to curb, control, prevent, or even cure. So, number one, parents need to be very, very monitoring in terms of their work. The government needs to put a lot of machinery in place to be able to make sure that, a lot of things are come. I had one terrible experience from 5-7 years ago. A private university, based in the Abeokuta to the tribe, had some children who would lodge themselves at that place. A lot of drugs that you never had of in your life is what they are getting themselves involved with. I'm sure I should shock you that you know that ordinary a bull stick that is government that we used to come selling letters and things like that. Some people snap it, mix it into their nose, and they get high. It's as bad as that. Something needed to be done quickly so that Nigeria will not be turned into the country of mad people. Good morning, Mr. President. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for calling. All right, Dr. Balogun, would you like to respond to the few questions and comments?
Isa Mustafa is talking about the issue of rape and the relationship with crime record. The police and the security agency are not having crime record of people. So
yes, I think I addressed this earlier that usually things like insecurity, trauma, and all of this would cause an increase in rate of breakdown in a society. So because there's of course the physical trauma of something like rape, there's the emotional trauma of something like rape. Then when it comes to things like kidnappings, it's a very great disturbing time of worry, anxiety, fear, uncertainty, and all of these things can increase the risk of a breakdown. So we should be working to make sure that the incidences of these things in the society are reduced. So even just improving security in a community is enough to reduce the rate of mental illness in that community. And then for something like rape, you know, rape is I'm sure you probably discussed it on this channel so many times. How can we reduce the incidences of things like that? When a society functions better, the community members are healthier. And when I talk of health, I'm including mental health. So how do we reduce insecurity? How do we increase justice? How do we increase wealth, innovation? When all of these things have better metrics, then the society will be healthier, including as regards their mental health.
Apostle Tawa already talks about the importation of this substance, but don't we have even local substances that are being abused?
We have.
So can we blame it lightly on importation of foreign substances?
I would say that the local substances that are being abused, what are they? How do they compare to the ones that are being imported? For example, I know that I think there's this Yoruba concoction thing that is mostly alcohol, but it's like a locally sold alcohol, paraga, you know, all of those things. Yes, they exist. Yes, alcohol can be a very big problem. It's a very big problem. So, but importation of things have now increased the pool of substances. Say before, people were only abusing paraga and all those concoctions, agbo, they'll say agbo jedi, although we know that inside the agbo jedi is something else that they are playing. You know, now that's not the only thing we are contending with. Now we are contending with things like crack, Colorado, ice. Before there was weed, of course. I think weed has been in existence in Nigeria for such a long time. Now there are so many different strains. SK, Arizona, you know, loud, Canadian loud. Are
you in the business? Being a psychiatrist, you are related with many.
Things I see every day. I can continue reeling out different substances and how they are used and how much they purchase them. You know, so we can say that we have, but importation of things has increased what is in the pool. Before we had to contend with only a few things. Now we are contending with much more.